those who missed that link, I'm sharing it again here in the chat box. So keep it going, guys. And thank you all for joining early, so we can start on time. We should be starting soon. I'm recording this session, and at the end of the session, you will get an email, and I will share the PDF slides for the whole session today. All right. All right. Enjoy yourself and keep on learning.
Okay, how many participants do we have at the moment?
We have 55.
Shall we wait for another like 2 minutes or so?
I think we can go ahead.
Wait down.
Yeah, we can go ahead.
Okay, wait. I think just give me a minute. Assalamualaikum. Good morning. Shall we start now? Time is 10:02. We have 60 participants in the room, including myself and Mimi. All right. Welcome to this. For me, this is my first workshop in conjunction with the National Training Week. Right. Actually, NTW National Training Week actually starts next week. Right. But from the first two that I participated, I also presented, I realized that during that 1 week period, which starts next week, there'll be hundreds of courses, workshops offered by the trainers, right? And you realize there's too many to choose, and also the participants, you as a participant, you know which one to choose as well, right? So I thought, okay, let's start this a week earlier before the NTW starts. Okay, this is why we're starting a week earlier. And I have two workshops today. This is a project management, and tomorrow I have also a high performance team, two workshops this week, right? And probably after the NTW ends, then probably we'll offer another two workshops after that. With that. So this workshop, I'm the facilitator, and MAPS MAPSSS Training Consultancy is the training provider which is organizing this workshop. Okay, if anything that you want, if you want to know more about these courses that we are running, you can actually contact MAPS directly for the courses. Okay, and as Mimi mentioned earlier, this workshop, the slides will be emailed to you after the workshop. And I'm not sure whether about certificate, but definitely the slides will be emailed to you or sent to you rather after the workshop. Okay, so I'm going to share my slides now. Let me see. Okay, the other thing in my area today, we have a very terrible bandwidth. Everything low. Bentar. Okay. Maybe just to confirm, my slides are on the screen.
Yeah, it is.
Oh,
all good.
All right. Thank you. So, okay. So, if you have not registered for today's attendance, there's a slide behind after the slide. You can just scan quickly now. and actually register for your attendance so that we can actually email the slides to you. Just grab your phone and then scan this. Give you another few more seconds to do this. All right, so let's go back to the topic today. So our topic today is Introduction to Project Management, and this workshop is for 2 hours. So we can't go deep as much as we go run a 2-day workshop or even longer workshops, right? So we will touch the basic ideas so that you roughly get an idea of what is project management. Okay. Like I mentioned, these slides will be emailed to you as well. All right. This one, attendance. Then, okay, I let me introduce myself very quickly. We need a minute or so. All right. So, my name is Khairul Anuar. I'm a very Malaysian, right? Because sometimes I got foreign trainers. They say, "Where are you from? Are you from Singapore? Are you from somewhere else?" I'm very Malaysian. All right. So, qualification wise, I hold MBA and also a PhD in finance. Many years ago, when I graduated from uni, my first full-time job officially was with Pepsi, meaning the Pepsi drink. All right. As a financial analyst, that's my first job as a paid job as in many years ago. Then subsequently, I was there for about 3.5 years. Then I joined another consultancy firm. It's called Cox & Co, also London as well. So after about 12 years in UK, I said, okay, enough of it. I want to go home. So I came back to Malaysia and then I joined. The only thing I want to do was investment banking, mainly listing of companies and so on. So I work here in Malaysia, also Singapore, with CIMB, Deutsche Bank, and a few others. Okay, and then after I did that banking for about. Maybe if you can mute everybody.
Yeah,
Let me do.
I'm doing it.
Yeah. Okay. So when I was in banking for almost 12 years again. Then I joined a public listed company as a chief financial officer, my CFO, and I also was a director of a few other listed companies as well, right? And then when I had enough of all that, I said, I don't want bosses, I don't want to work for anybody. So I did a PhD. Then I came out of the full-time job. Then start do training, I do lecturing, and I do advisory work and so on. Right. So that's my background, very short background. And on the left-hand side or right-hand side on my screen, anybody can take a guess what is that on your right-hand side of the screen. Going somewhere. Anybody can take a guess. What is it? Okay. We have 40 people. I think to get people to participate is quite difficult, right? So, okay, the what you see as like a mountain top actually is a Gunung Kinabalu. I put this for two reasons. One is that when I've not much to do, I'm bored, or I want something to do, I'll climb mountains, I go trekking and things like that. That's my hobby, really. And I put this Gunung Kinabalu specifically because when we talk of project, a lot of things we do actually comes like a project or management rather, right? So for instance, if I want to climb a mountain, Gunung Kinabalu, I cannot say, okay, I'm going to climb tomorrow, right? I got to physically, at a personal level, I got to prepare, right? I must be fit enough, so I have to go hiking and running and so on. So physically, I'm fit, right? The second thing, I got to manage the transport, flight details, accommodation, and so on. I'll also get a pass as well. So it's not like something like I decide today and just go, right? You'll do a lot of preparation to get to the hike, to climb the mountain. And of course, once the climb is done, you descend and come back, and then it's done. So project done, right? So that's the thing. So when the group is small, actually I do an icebreaker, but I will skip this for today. Right, let's do this. Okay. About halfway, about 10 o'clock, we'll have a short break, maybe like 5 minutes coffee break. Okay. Right. Let me give you a few examples of project management or projects rather. Right? Okay. First of all, first one, example of a construction project. This is a Heathrow airport in London, Terminal 1. So the airport wanted to refurbish, rebuild, and expand the airport, mainly because the number of travelers passing through is increasing, right? When terminal opened, they can accommodate about 20 million travelers passing through, right? Over time, that's increased. So, and the challenge for them for this project was they cannot close the airport because there's no other airport to to kind of facilitate these travelers, right? So the airport has to remain open, and while they're doing that, they have to rebuild this airport part by part. Right, that was a challenge. Okay. Of course, when you have these travelers passing through, millions of people traveling through every day, you have to still operate the airport. And then now you got to schedule the renovation, the reconstruction in a systematic way so that when it's done, it doesn't disrupt the flights. That's the main thing, right? So they, of course, as a project, they delivered on time, within budget as well, and without much incidents or accidents, right? Later, when we talk about it, there's a guideline, we call it Project Management Book of Knowledge Guide, PMBOK, right? So when this airport was completed, it also is mentioned because one of the projects, successful project worldwide, because the challenge was, like I was saying, they have to do the reconstruction or renovation while the airport is still running, right? If you have to open close the airport, then it's easier, right? We just nothing to worry about instead of safety and things like that. But in this case, the airport was still operating. Means the flights has to come in and depart on time. Safety, customer safety is important. Is vital, important. They focused on and so on, right? So it's construction. Okay, that's one. Another project that I can give it to you is this. When the pandemic 19 happened, okay, there are many things happened. There are a lot of things happened, right? But one of the things that was important for all of us as layperson was this vaccine, right? When the pandemic started, there was no vaccine for us, right? So these research drug companies or pharmaceutical companies were racing to create come up with this vaccine for the virus, COVID-19 virus, right? And then one of the companies which came up with the vaccine was this company, UK company called AstraZeneca. Maybe you heard about it. They partnered with University of Oxford to develop the vaccine. All right. So so as the pandemic creating havoc everywhere, they came up with an option for the vaccine. And of course, once the vaccine is ready and tested, then they have to send these vaccines across the world, every country that wants it, right? So that was a challenge as well, right? So with many partnerships with different agencies and so on, they quite successfully delivered the vaccine on time, right? As the rest was still in devastatingly destroying countries and people, right? So they at the end of the period, they managed to deliver 1 billion vaccine doses to more than 170 countries, right? So that's no mean feat. To develop the vaccine is one thing. Then also vaccines ready now, you got to send over to all these countries, 170 countries, more than 170 countries on time, so they can then this vaccine can be then injected into the people, right? That's another one. Okay, so next Europe vaccine. Another example I can give you is this, right? So imagine that every 5 years or so, we have an election. All right. Just give me a minute. I want to close my door. Okay. So every 5 years or so, we will have an election in the country. And imagine how election works. Election comes about, SPR, Suruhanjaya Pilihan Raya. They will announce the date. I think after the consulting the government, they'll say, okay, on so on date on 21st February, it will be the election date. So on that's the date fixed already. And then they have to prepare for the election. SPR, this agency, have to prepare. So it's not like okay, we announce the date, therefore they don't know what to do. They have to print the ballot box papers, ballot boxes, and then they should have done the registration of voters and so on, so that when the date comes, they're all ready for the election. Okay, so that's one example of a project where later when we talk about criteria or characteristics of a project, we'll see that there's an election date fixed already, and then there's an open date, closing date fixed already, and there's a budget for them, and you know what to deliver as well. Right. So this election in Malaysia, so you can see this is a project actually. So when the election is done with, the project comes to an end.
Bukan yang dia punya yang tepi-tepi tu je.
And then after that, after 4 years or so, there'll be another election. Then SPR have to organize, prepare the project again, another project, right? Let me give another example. So this is a Malaysian election, right? So it's a project. Another example is in US election. If the US election is quite peculiar because the election is sometime in November, all right? And then the inauguration is in January, all right? So whoever wins the election, the new president, then have to form his, we call it cabinet here, right? The ministers in equivalent. So the Secretary of State, Treasury, Chair, Head, and so on. So they have to elect all these people. So in this is a book published by Mitt Romney. Mitt Romney was the candidate for US president in 2012 when President Obama was going to the second term, right? President Obama's first term coming to an end, and they had election in 2012, and Mitt Romney was a candidate for Republican Party, all right? So what happened? So imagine the election is in November. In January, they have to come into office, and they have 2 months to prepare for the appointment of all the ministers, Secretary of State, ambassadors, and so on, all the key people in the government. So what this Romney's team did was they came up with a project paper, a project book actually, right? A project paper. And then this is how they can go implement what they will do if they win the election. If they win the election, right? So imagine the election is not over yet. They're already preparing if they win what they will do. Okay. So this is how they prepared for the post-election if they win, right? Of course, Mitt Romney didn't win the election. Obama won again for the second term, right? And then this project paper was then published as a book, right? So you can order from Kinokuniya, or also I have one in my bookshelf as well. And also you can, of course, you can order from Amazon as well. This is a book that you can buy from bookshop, right? It details what they have to do from day one until the inauguration day, all the appointments, all the things they got to do within 2 months plus, right? About 2 months. So that's another example of a project, all right? So another example locally is this, of the Red Cross. Okay, when you have a Red Cross, what is their role? Anybody will take a guess what is Red Cross does? Anybody, anything on the chat group? Okay, okay. Okay, Red Cross, sorry, I can't hear you. Somebody spoke something, I can't hear you. Okay, Red Cross internationally, what they do is they go support the people where there's a disaster. For instance, a volcano eruption, landslide, or major flood. There's a disaster happening in a location, and they will send their team to help support the community around that. All right, that's basically what they do. All right, so each time, let's say there's a volcano eruption in a country, and they will send their people. So, for them, for Red Cross point of view, what they do is project by project, right? So they have a team. Let's say there's an earthquake in a country, they will send their team, right, to support team with the medicine, with the blankets, and all the things they need to do, right? And when the job is done at that location, where the earthquake was, they will go back to the center, right, where their office is. Then they will, if there's no other disaster happening, they will go back to the office and do the preparation for next project, right? Of course, they will do the post-mortem and so on. So every time a project, what Red Cross does is actually a project management, right? There's a disaster, you go and help support. So that's a project, right? Once that's done, they go back and it's close the project down. Okay, that's another example of project management. Right. Locally, also we have NADMA, right? National Disaster Management Agency. So if let's say there's sorry, let's say there is a earthquake, or not in Malaysia, we don't have earthquake, right? We have landslide, we got major flooding. Okay, that happens every now and then. And you know that in Malaysian weather, from November to February is where the monsoon comes, heavy rain and flooding happens. So this national agency, a National Disaster Management Agency, is what they can support the local people where the disaster happens, right? So let's say the flooding in, say, a township in Johor. This team of NADMA will be involved in that rescue team, right? So imagine that although it's a project, they also have to do a lot of property work. For instance, if you know that within November and February, the flooding will happen in a certain location, they have to do all the preparation in terms of the support team, like blankets, food items, and where the flood victims are going to be stationed, located, and so on, right? So it's a lot of preparation work. But once that project is done, they will go back to their center and then say, prepare for the next disaster which will happen, right? It could be earthquake, could have a major fire breakout, could be in locally we don't have earthquake issues, but other like landslide and things like that, right? They will be there. That's national disaster. So each time they do it's a project. Each visit, they're involved in a disaster. It's a project on its own. Okay. Now let's go to another example. Are all projects successful? No, because I live in Shah Alam in Selangor, and there was a project to build a public hospital in Shah Alam. All right. So this project was delayed for almost more than 8 years, actually. All right. And eventually it opened in 2015. It opened finally. Right. So not all projects are successful. Some will fail, some will get delayed. Some will be abandoned as well. So if you go around the country, if you in some townships, you'll see housing developments abandoned, right, for some reason. So not all projects are successful. Some will fail. Some will be take a longer time to complete. Some will be over budget as well. Not all that happens. Okay, so that's an example of a project that wasn't successful as planned, but eventually the hospital opened as well. Okay, let's go to the next one. Okay, let's talk about, I gave you all the examples of what project is in real life. Let me talk about, introduce what is project management. Okay, when the textbook definition of project management is a discipline of planning, executing, and overseeing projects to achieve specific goals within defined constraints. We talk about constraints in a minute, okay? So you want to achieve a certain goal. We also have constraints, limitations, or objectives rather. So for instance, if the government says we want to build an airport in Shah Alam, all right? And then the time frame is how long is it, a budget, and what is the scope of how many floors, how big is the hospital and going to be, and so on, right? So that's a constraint you have, okay? And of course, it involves process and methodologies and so on, right? The textbook definition. Let's look at this. Okay, so when we talk of project, the project has to produce a unique product, service, or result. So if we say, okay, build an airport, that's a unique product. Build an airport. We're not going to build a housing or apartment or something, right? Unique product, specific as required, right? Unique product, and it has a limited time frame. So the government will say, okay, build a hospital in Teluk Intan, and you take your own time. It won't be like that. Tell me, the government tender will say, okay, the construction starts when and how long is it going to be? Construction starts on 1st January 2025 and must be completed in 3 years' time, in say 4 years or so, and must be completed in 31st December 2029. So there's a time frame for that. So you cannot be like open-ended, take as much time as you want. So it's a time frame limit given as well, right? So by definition, all projects will have a definite beginning and ending determined already, predetermined already, right? So always like there's a time frame for a completion of a project, right? If the project is not completed as set out in the timeline, then it means it's overextended. Like the example of the Shah Alam export hospital, it took 8 years to complete, 8 extra additional years to complete the project, right? So that's the time frame. And also, you must have a project, must have an end result or product, right? For example, if it's an airport, there's an airport, right? If it's a hospital, there's a hospital, right? So you cannot say the project says you build a hospital and then end result, it will be a housing area. It won't be like that. It has to deliver what is promised, right? And the end product is specified, say, a hospital with 800 beds, with all the facilities that a hospital requires. That's what it is. Okay, so that's a brief definition of a project, of criteria for project. So another way of looking at it, so going back based on that, we have said, so a project always has a start and end date, right? It cannot be open-ended like forever and forever. So a project says it starts on this date and finish on that date. So let's say a company like SIMW wants to install a new software. You'll say, okay, on this date, we will start the work. On 1st January, we'll start the work, and by 30th June, the installation of the software must be completed already. So the beginning date and the end date, right? Next one. So a project is not forever. It doesn't continue forever and ever, right? If it continues forever, that's very likely operations. I'll talk about it later. Okay, and a project has a unique deliverable or end product, right? So when you say, okay, we want to install a new software, so that's what we're going to install a software. End of the period, you have installed a software that we were promised. Okay, or if you say a result, we're going to increase our sales by say 20%. So during the period, the sales will increase, has to be increased by that. Okay, and you have this predetermined defined goals, right? Build a hospital which say 800 beds and so on. Okay, so and you have a clear boundaries, clear defined scope of clear boundaries, meaning it's in a hospital. If let's say I'm a contractor, my job scope says construct a hospital. It does not include the roads leading into the airport, for instance. The hospital. Right? That's not included. That could be another agent, another company doing the roads, right? Landscaping outside the hospital may be included, given to another contractor. So that's if I'm the contractor building the airport, my scope doesn't include landscaping, right? My scope might not include interior design, for instance. So in the contract or the agreement, it will say clearly what I'm supposed to do and what is not included, what is not within my scope. Okay, all right. So another example, if I say to you, my scope is to install the software, meaning that any purchasing of hardwares and so on is within not my scope, unless it's specified in the contract as well or agreement as well. Okay, and always we call it triple constraints. A project always has triple constraints. All right, a time, a cost, and scope limitation. So if you, like what I said earlier, a project will have the beginning date and ending date. There's a time, right? So a project is never open-ended. It cannot be like forever and forever. That's not a project anymore, right? And you also have a budget. How much is it? So let's say the government says, okay, build this hospital for 1.5 billion ringgit. That's the cost, right? If the cost is eventually the cost of the constructing the hospital goes say above 1.8, it's an overspending already. It's not didn't meet the budget. So always there's a cost element in that, and also scope limitation. That's what I said. If the contract says you construct the hospital, meaning I don't do the other things like purchasing the equipment of the hospital, X-ray machines, all that not within my scope. My scope is only constructing the hospital, right? If in the case, it also mean that I do not do landscaping outside the hospital. I'm not in charge of the responsible for the car park, for instance. right? That's not within my scope. So there'll be another contractor, right? Of course, resource allocation. When you talk about a project, you have a specific group of people working on the project. You have a budget, and you also have the material that you have to purchase for that project. So if I'm installing a software in a company, then I have to buy the software, purchase the software with the license and so on. That's what I'm going to need for the project. Okay, the next one is a project may involve cross-functional teams. Example, let's say we want to install a new software in a company, accounting software in a company, right? So in this case, we have accounting software that you're going to purchase, but it doesn't mean only the IT department usually is in charge of the softwares and hardwares. So in addition to the IT department, you will involve with the finance and accounting team, people from those departments. You might also include a HR team because the payroll comes under HR, right? If you have a procurement department, they will also be involved in this project because they are involved in the purchasing of all the things that the company buys, right? So when you do a project, it may involve different departments or multiple departments or skill sets as well, right? So you're not like if it's IT, let's say software installation, is not necessarily only IT department is involved, it could be other departments as well, right? HR, accounting department, purchasing, and so on, right? Okay, that's a cross-functional team. Last one is when we do a project, there's always uncertainty or risk, right? Let's say you're constructing a hospital, you know that for almost 3 to 4 months in the year, November to say February, you will have delays because it rains heavily, the project might be delayed, right? It could happen. And then the project might have problem finding the workers to do the project construction. That could be a problem as well, right? So there are always constraints, risk and uncertainty when you run a project, right? So these are all part of the projects, right? I'll talk about triple constraint in a minute. Okay.
We have a question, Dr. Anuar,
Sekejap ya.
from Teo
Let me see.
Ping Ju.
Okay, sekejap ya. Chat.
This criteria cannot be fully met 100% after looking at the current situation. Can a 90% fulfillment be accepted? How can we judge which criteria has a higher priority than the others?
Okay, let me see. Okay, if the list of criteria cannot be fully met, but after looking at the current situation, can a 90% fulfillment be accepted? How can we judge with the criteria as a higher priority than the others? Okay, so if I understand this question, let's say we're constructing a hospital, right? And the contract says, say I'm building a hospital in Teluk Intan, so there'll be 500, it's a hospital with 500 beds, right? Because the design of the terrain, the landscape, the land and so on, if he says, okay, we can only do 400 beds, let's say, then you're actually not fulfilling the scope of the project, okay? So if, let's say for whatever reason, you can't meet the scope of the project, if you overrun the cost or you can't meet the timeline, then you have to renegotiate with the sponsor of the project, meaning whoever is giving you the project, right? So if let's say for whatever reason, you can't complete the project within 3 years, right? You need another 6 months. Then you have to go back and tell the stakeholder or the sponsor of the project that we need another 6 months to complete the project. All right. That's one. If I understand that question, that's it. Yeah. So when you say 90%, it's up to the what do you call the stakeholder or the sponsor of the project to accept it or not. Right. So in the contract, sometimes usually with big projects like hospitals, airport, and so on, they will have this cost overrun. Let's say the project originally was 1 billion. Now, as it progresses, you foresee the project will be 1.2 billion, so 200,000 extra. So then the contract will say who will bear the cost, additional cost, in the event the cost overrun. Right? So that will be specified in the contract. Usually a good contract will specify that, right? If they don't specify that, then I mean it's a contract. I mean, in the case of government and so on, they will specify this, like who will bear the extra costs and so on with them. All right. So, but it could be that, okay, let me give an example of since you asked question. Many years ago, when the KLCC tower, the two towers are built, constructed, initially, if you follow the story, they want to have two towers in KLCC, that's the location, and that's about it. They will not talk about being the highest, tallest building, and there's no such talks at that point. All right. So at that point, then the Prime Minister, then Tun Mahathir was the Prime Minister. So, you know, he was the Prime Minister, and somebody whispered to him or told him that let's make this, since we're reconstructing this, let's make this the tallest building in the world. All right. So this was when the construction was going on already. They started already. So now you want to make this, of course, Tun accepted the idea. He was happy to accept the idea. Now, for the construction contractor's point or construction company's view, there's a change of scope now. All right. Initially, you want to straight to a tall building. Now you're saying you want to do build two towers which are one of the tallest in the world, right? So it means the scope has changed, and the engineering work have changed as well, right? The scope has changed, engineering work was changed. So it means that what? When your scope change, when scope change, it means what? Longer time to complete the project. There'll be additional costs. Those two definitely happen. Time will change, time frame will change, cost will change. Of course, scope change at the request of the sponsor or the government or Malaysia at the point, whichever agency was contracting the project, right? So when one of those things, let me give an example. Let's say you're a contractor, you build houses, right, for people, right? So then the client says, I want this house with normal tiles, on the flooring was normal tiles and so on. And then along the way, the customer had made some extra profit in his business. He said, hey, I don't want normal tile, I want Italian marble on my flooring. All right. So when you put straight tiles that you buy, normal hardware shop is one thing. When you install Italian marble, imported marble, the scope has changed. Right? When there's change, the time frame will change as well. Right? The additional cost, of course, is borne by the customer because the client, because they wanted the change. Right? So depending on who asks for the change, sometimes the change is requested by the sponsor or the project owner, whoever is giving you the contract. Right? In the case of the KL Tower, Twin Towers was the government of Malaysia. Right? So they require the change. Or sometimes the change could be duly, let's say you want to install equipment, but that equipment, nowadays the trade war with China and US and so on, let's say you want to buy this equipment from, say, US, now USA cannot supply to you and so on, or it's too expensive already because of the tariffs. Now you could source the equipment from elsewhere, a different equipment. Could be a bit more expensive, it could be cheaper as well, right? So scope has changed as well. So situations also can make us change the scope of the work. Okay, I hope I answered the question. Let me see the chat again for work. From me, what is the best software? Okay, what is good best software for project management? Okay, for the common one is, okay, there's two common ones. One is the Microsoft project. That's the most of the medium size or even big companies use that software. Right. The other one is Primavera, which is more advanced, I would say. Also a project management software that out in the market. Right. It could be that other maybe not very popular softwares can be tailor-made and so on for you. Right. Let me other questions. Yeah. So depending on the software you buy is depending on the budget you have, how much money you want to spend on the project. All right. The more you have, you can go more advanced modules and so on, integrated to your existing softwares as well. Okay. No more other questions, right? Okay, thank you. Let me continue here. All right. So that's the constraints of project. Okay. Now, this is where, let me go to this one. Okay, so if you look at I mean, if you refer to all textbook for project management, if you go in website as well, they say triple constraints of project management, right? Later we'll talk about the fourth one. So when we take when you see a project, these three scopes, constraints must be met, right? Like earlier we said, if it's a project, the time beginning time and end time, right? If it's an open timeline, that is not by definition a project. A project will start at a certain date, finish on a certain date. It's a project, right? Later we'll talk about operations as well. And then the scope is already determined, meaning build a house, two-story house at this location, right? With how many 3 rooms and all that stuff, right? The scope, right? That's the scope. And the cost also determined. So you build this house for 300,000 ringgit. That's a cost given to you, negotiated with the sponsor of the project. Project means the whoever, the house owner asking it. So that's a triple constraint. So if you don't meet this triple constraint, by definition, it's not a project. It's actually operations, right? So remember, a project always have a beginning time and end time, right? It's like saying, SEA Games and Olympics and so on. There's a beginning date and end date, right? There's Olympics Games is actually a project. So the people running the project, they're actually project managers, right? Because the Olympics will come to an end at a certain date. After that, it's closed, and then they prepare for the next Olympics, in 4 or 5 years or so. All right, that's how it works. That's triple constraint. So remember this idea of a triple constraint, right? But more importantly, recently, as things develop, evolve and so on, people decided, okay, in addition to scope, time, scope, and cost, it must be acceptable to the client. Right? So they accepted now quadruple constraint, the 4 constraints of project management, right? So in addition to time, scope, and cost, also the project must be accepted. It must be acceptable to the client. Otherwise, it's not a project, right? Let's say you meet the timeline, it's within budget, it's delivered as thing, and the client says, this is not what I wanted, right? It could be that during the negotiation, we or they misunderstood the scope, right? So now we have a project, we say on our part as a contractor, we say it's completed. The client says, no, that's what I wanted, right? Which is also the reason why when you negotiate project, the terms must be very clear, right? Example I gave you, let's say you're delivering construction of a building, office block, right? So if the client at the end of the delivering the building, let's say the client says, oh, by the way, you also have to do the landscaping, but in the contract, it doesn't say that, right? Or it's silent. Let's say the contract doesn't say anything about silent. So we on a contractors or construction company, we thought, okay, the landscaping will be done by another company, but the client's understanding is we also do the landscaping as well. So now we have this dispute, right? So that's where the contract must clearly say what the scope, what you do, and what you do not do, right? So if you're installing a software, mute this. If you're installing a software in a company, you have to clarify whether who actually go and buys the software, right? And also, if it involves new additional hardware, who's going to buy that? Is it part of the project or not? So you have to clarify very clearly. Otherwise, we'll come to dispute at a later date. And you say, okay, there'll be, arguments, and eventually you might go into the courts also. So very clearly say the scope, what you do and what you're not supposed to do. Be very clear about that. Okay, so that's the thing. The quadruple constraints involve time, scope, cost, and the end product acceptable to the client based on the quality. So that's the quadruple constraints, right? Earlier we said triple, right? A triple constraint. So understand the basic idea of a project is this triple constraint. So if let's say later we'll talk about operations. If a project does not, let's say something you do and it does not have this time, cost, and scope specified, then it's very likely it's going to be operations. It's not a project by definition. All right. If it's a day-to-day running, doing the same thing every day, then it's an operation. It's not a project. So project must always have beginning date, end date, must have a specific budget, very specified, and also what is involved in that project. If it's open-ended, then it's definitely not a project. So remember this. For all the things you remember, project must have this triple constraints. Okay. Of course, the last one, it must be acceptable to the client as well. Quality that you promised. Okay, let me put that in. So that's one. Okay, so when we just explain that quadruple constraints, so for the times vector, schedule allocated for completing is given right from the beginning. So let's say the project starts on 1st January, aims on deliver, the end product must be delivered on 30th June, last date to deliver. So there's a time allocated already. All right. If it doesn't specify a time, like, I mean, how do you can be doing any complete any time you like, right? So it's not a project as such. So always have a project must have a beginning date, end date, right? Even if you have say if your parents, you have children in the school. Let's say you are involved in a organizing a games for children, school, a sports day in the school, right? So the teachers, people involved in the project sports day, well, let's say they start working two months before the project and ends on the date of the sports day, right? Of course, after sports day, they will have the reporting and closing and so on, right? So there's a beginning date, end date always in a project, right? And you must have a specific deliverable or task at the end of the project. So deliverable could be a completed 5-story building, office building. Could be installing a new software, accounting software in a company. There's a task required. All right. So this scope is very defined. Okay. And also there's a budget allocated, right? If the project says this office building must be completed, budget for this office building is 10 million ringgit, that's the budget for allocated. So if let's say for one, it's a cost overrun because cost of material has gone up, cost of the equipment has gone up, then it has to be negotiated again. Right. So if let's say for some reason, if a budget is reduced, if let's say client originally says, I want, tele marble, and now he says, okay, because he doesn't have enough money, he wants to reduce to, ordinary tiles which you buy from hardware shop. That's the cost reduction in this case, right? At the request of the client. Okay, last one, the product we deliver must meet the client's expectations, right? And needs. If he says office building, then it's an office building. It's not an apartment. It's not a house, residential unit, right? It must be meet that expectation, the client's thing. So these 4 quadruple constraints of a project. It also means that this quadruple constraints, it defines what is a project. If you don't meet all these 4, means it's not a project. It's actually operations. Okay. At some point we'll talk about constraints as well. Okay, so basically, to define a project, whether project successful or not, it must be completed within an allocated time, right? Remember the example of the hospital I gave you in Sharlam. It was 8 years delay, right? Because the disputes with the contractors and the one who got the contract and so on, right? It must be within the budgeted cost. Could be sometimes you have projects like, I think KLIA 2, the cost was there was a major cost overrun, few 100 million ringgit cost overrun, right? And then at the proper performance and specification level, so what is promised and the scope level must be met. All right. So if you say HR software, human resource software, which can tailor for payroll and also on for 500 staff, means that if the capacity of the software only for 300, then you didn't meet the specification. Right? And then next one, the project delivered must be acceptable to the customer or user. Right? That's one. Right? If the customer rejects it, then you didn't meet objective of the project. Okay, and also with the minimum of mutually agreed upon scope changes. Just now I said example about KLIA towers, twin towers. If the scope change was requested by the client, right? The client wants to change, then okay, we'll as the project manager will accept it, because if there's a change of scope, more so if scope changes or scope increase, usually it means more money for the contractor. The budget will increase, means more money for the construction company or the project management company. The fees will increase, the income will increase. So usually it's increased. So when there's a scope change, also means time frame will change as well. Right? If you expanded more scope, bigger scope, time of completion of project will increase also. Right? So that's the other thing. So when the other thing is minimum, if it can be minimum means has to be negotiated with the client. Yeah, the sponsor. Right? Any changes become without not within your control must be negotiated with the client. Let's say you promise one type of lift to move people from floor to floor, and for some reason the cost of the lift has gone up. Now it has to be negotiated, mutually agreed with the client. Right? That has to happen. Okay, and then as to should not disturb the main flow of the organization. Example is like saying, in the case of airport, what do you call it, Heathrow Airport, and when the project was awarded or the contract was awarded, the requirement was the hospital, the airport must continue running as usual, right? Planes will land, the takeoff, a few million people still have to go through the airport to their destination. The airport operation cannot stop. Right, so that the one thing, unless it's a new project. Let's say you construct a new airport, a new residential unit, apartment, or even a hospital, brand new hospital. Then of course this doesn't stop the work going on. Right. Later I will give another example of a project hospital project in Latin America where where the hospital had to continue operations while the renovation is going on, expansion is going on, right? So that's the thing. Where was this? Okay. So when especially when a project involves renovation and so on, you should not disrupt the work that the company is doing. So another one. Of course, you cannot change the corporate culture and so on. Deal with that. Okay. So defining a project. So all this defines a project. But remember the three triple constraints. When you don't have the three items, time, scope, and cost, means it's definitely not a project by definition. Okay. Right. So there's two terms, other things they come. So if you have a project in an organization, naturally you're going to have a project manager, right? Sometimes you don't officially call it a project manager, but that person is in charge of the project. So let's say you're installing a new accounting software in the company, then the person responsible for the installation of the software is a project manager. Although title might not say that, right? But he's in charge of leading the project, managing resources, ensuring the project meets the objective within the constraints of time, scope, and budget, right? So that's one guy responsible for the project management of that particular project. Okay, so another term you will see is this PMO or Project Management Office. So let's say a company like SIMW and the big companies, right? They have multiple projects going on at the same time, right? A small company may one project at a time, but a big conglomerates, MNC and so on, they will have many projects running at the same time. So they will have a centralized department or unit, they call it, which is called PMO or Project Management Office, right? So they are the people who will coordinate the various projects in the company, the organization. So it's a centralized unit, just like say head of accounting, head of legal department. You will have a PMO office. You will be a head of PMO, and he will oversee the entire project, all the project in the company, right? So centralized organized unit, standardized, look at the project governance, support project processes, tools, practices, and so on, right? So they are the one who actually, they are the backbone for project success by, throughout the organization. Right, this thing. So the two terms, project manager and PMO. Right, not all companies have PMO in their hierarchy. Right, big companies have them. Okay, I'll skip this. Okay, let's talk about now. Earlier we talked about by definition, a project must have three constraints, right? Time, scope, and budget or cost rather, right? So if you're something that you do in an organization, a company, you don't have that, then it's very likely you call it operations management, operations, right? So let's say company that makes bread actually for the supermarket, they the people go in every day, they make bread, the same thing every day, right? That's called operations. Ongoing process that produce good or deliver goods or services, right? So if a supermarket, let's say I go to Giant or Maidin, one of the supermarket, day to day they're running the same thing every day, right? They stock the product on the shelf, they sell, take the money, and then buy more products and so on. They do the same thing every day. So that's actual operation management, right? So when you are in the department, when you're doing operations, you're very interested or focused on efficiency, how the business run. You want to make sure that you have enough resources, enough people, process optimized, quality are maintained, and so on, right? Efficiency operations, right? So basically, operation managers oversee day-to-day activities. So a manager of a giant supermarket, his responsibility is to make sure the store opens on time, close on time, the stocks are shelved, there's enough people at the counter, customers are served on time, cleanliness is maintained, there's no liquid on the floor that people water or liquid on the floor will slip and fall, things like that, right? Aircon is maintained and so on. So that's the operation manager's duty is to make sure the day-to-day activities are carried out smoothly. That's what the operation managers mean, right? If you compare that to the project manager's role, the project manager's role is not day-to-day activity. Actually, it's focused on delivering the end product, right? Okay, that's one. Another way, time now is 10:55, right? Let me finish this. Okay, so going back to the definition of project management versus operations management. Okay, so for project management, the time frame is temporary with a defined start and end, right? So anytime if you have something going on in organization, it has a beginning date, end date is a project. Whereas operation management is ongoing, right? If you go to giant supermarket, day to day they run. It's ongoing, continuous. It doesn't stop until they have a public holiday and so on, right? But you continue. So they have a time frame. And then you have the output. When you have a project manager, you have a unique product or outcome, right? If I'm installing an accounting software in a company, the output will be install accounting software in a company, which the company staff in the accounting department can use. All right. Whereas if you look at output or operation management, it's a very repetitive, maintains and sustains existing system. So they're not installing anything. They are not going to do anything new, right? They open the store, giant supermarket in the morning, close in the evening, and during the day they do what they do every day. It's nothing new, very repetitive, right? So for risk level for project management, is higher due to new and unique, because we don't know. When you do a project, you don't know what will happen. You will forecast and plan, but things will go wrong sometimes, right? Weather could be one, supply of raw material could be another one, shortage of people to work in the project could be another one. So risk level is high because we don't know it's something new. Whereas if you do operation, risk is very low because you repeat every day, right? If you need 10 counters open at the supermarket, then you just to make sure that 10 people at the counter every day and check out every day, right? So it's very repetitive, right? This one, this level. So for risk level, for project is higher, operations is lower, right? And also project management, the team is actually temporary. They come together when the project starts. At the end of the project, they go to another project, right? Whereas the operation management, the people there are permanent, almost permanent, right? Every day they come in, do the same stuff, and they go home, right? And they could be doing that for next 10 years or so, right? Then for focus, project management, the goals is very specific, right? Delivering a project, whereas for operation is ensuring smooth operations of business operations, right? And last one, in the context of project management, at end of the project, we're introducing a new product, service, or process, right? Whereas the operation management, we are not introducing nothing new, but improving, enhancing or improving existing project or consistency and so on, right? So in the case of operation, we just try to improve the operations every day, right? Faster service to the client, restock the shelf faster, quicker, and so on, basically, right? So that's project management, operation management. If you look at another point of view, project management is general management. For project management, the focus is planning, execution, closing a specific temporary project, right? For general management, overall management, direction of organization, right? And again, time frame, project management, time bound, with specific start and end date. for general management, it's ongoing, no specific time frame. It's ongoing on forever, right? And so on, right? Okay, that's time now is 10:59.
Can we answer a few questions? And Zaida, you have any questions?
Jaya, I look at the chat. Sebentar, ya.
Ada raise hand.
Hi, Dr. Khairul Anuar. My name is
Yeah.
Zaida.
Ajada?
Actually, I'm curious, how do we predict on the risk? Because every time my boss asks for a new project, right, it haven't been done for us. It haven't been done. So I don't know how to read the risk. Is it like we need to read it every day by day, or during the preparation, during the planning, or how is it works? How to predict a risk? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Zaida, asking for that question. Okay, this is about talking about risk. Okay, so at the beginning of the project, ideally, right, or you should have do this, that you will list the project, the risk that can go wrong. The things can go wrong, right, in the project. Could be shortage of staff with delay in time, delay in delivery of the material or equipment and so on, weather patterns and so on. So you have a list of things that go wrong. Those are risk factors, right? So at the beginning of the project, you should do this, and then as the project going on, you monitor. Let's say you get your procurement says, if we want to buy this equipment, but it looks like the cost already increased by 20%, right? There's a project cost increase, cost raise, right? So that then you'll take into account and tell the stakeholders that, hey, look, the project initially was the equipment was purchased, budget for the equipment was 500,000. Now it has gone up to 800,000, 300,000 ringgit extra or additional. Then this information was given to the stakeholders. So, or in the context of company, senior management or directors, that they know there's a cost increase already in this project. All right. So going back to the question, list all the things can go wrong, right? Which is a list of risks of you have, and then monitor along the line as the project progresses. Okay. It could be other things, like you wanted 5 engineers, software engineers, but you only managed to secure 3 for some reason, right? So because you don't have enough people, the project is going to be delayed for a few months because you don't have enough people, right? That could be another one. So basically list all the things that the risks you have, and then monitor them as you go against the timeline, against the budget, and so on. Okay, I hope I answered the question, Zaida. Right, thank you. Right. Okay. Kolishi, the projects managing usually more in construction that keep track and some. Okay. Okay. So so basically it's like when you're running as a project manager, because you might not call in your company, you might not call yourself a project manager, you call it like chief engineer or one of those titles you have. Head of department could be one also. So basically your role is to, or your responsibility to track those 3 things: time, cost, and scope, right? If you track those 2, and of course you're making sure what you deliver at the end of the day is what the sponsor wanted, then you met the criteria already. You consider you have successfully delivered the project. Okay. KB Chu said, as for the risk, it's recommended to perform Gemba at the site to view and identify potential risks that may occur. Yeah, Gemba means actually walkabout lah, right? So as you project progresses, you as a project manager in your team, go around if you're construction site, go and look what's going on, right? And then safety issues around, is there going to be delay? What could go wrong, and so on. Yep. Okay. Sofyan Rosby, do we need to develop a risk map? Yes, you can develop a risk map. Okay. Usually kalau macam example is like saying, okay, let's say you do it constructing the hospital, the budget could be like 1 billion. Naturally, the whole system will be very organized, right? They will have a risk map and list of things that can go wrong, very intact, very well drafted contract agreement in place and so on, right? What you do if this goes wrong? All right. Let's say cost increase of 5%. What do you do next? Who do you report to and so on? The contract or agreement will specify very clearly. Yeah. Okay. Suresh Kumar said, the Khairul, appreciate you can share. Okay, this slide I'll share with you, definitely. All right. I will send to Mimi and she will then email to you. Definitely I'll share it to you. Okay. So yeah, slides definitely give it to you. Okay. Hadiyanti Ben asked, can PMO manager also appointed as a project manager? It can be. There's no fast rule. Basically, in a PMO, imagine if you're the accounting department or legal department, HR, right? You will have a head of department. So project management office will have a head, right? It could be general manager, could be vice president. So the PMO office will have a boss, basically a leader, right? Could be a vice president, could be general manager, and so on. So he or she, PMO head, or let's say leader of the PMO, then appoint one person in her team to become a project manager, right? Let's say, for instance, one subsidiary in, I don't know, in Penang is have to do a new project. So the head of the HR PMO can say, okay, you, John, you will be responsible for this project. You are the project manager. You have to follow up with this project closely, right? So you have a project manager. But also remember that sometimes the title project manager, it could be something else as well, not necessarily the same, right? It could be, it can be software manager, but you actually handling the scope of a project manager as well. Okay. Oh, I answered all the questions, right? Okay, so Hadiyanti Ben, can you have a few project managers in one project but different deliverable? Okay, usually like when you have an operation, let's say a department or accounting department, we will have a few roles, right? Let's say even HR, right? You have payroll, you got recruitment, you got people development, and training, and so on. So in an ideal situation, the PMO, the company will have one lead project manager. All right, one lead manager. Then under that, him or her, they will have slightly lower, another level where I say, okay, this person is in charge of all the software development in the company, for instance. Right? That's one. And then so you can have many project managers, but they will have one boss or vice president or GM to overlook the entire project PMO office. I hope I'm answering your question, Hadiyanti. Right? So you can have few project managers, yes, but their scope must be very definitely defined what it is. Yeah, so it could be construction. In the context of construction, you can have one head of project manager, and you got assistant manager in charge of the electrical and all the electrical. Another one could be in charge of the landscaping. Another one is of interior design and so on. Could be many. We call it assistant project manager basically, right, supporting the senior one. Okay, KB2, ensure the appointment of project manager has the sound knowledge and experience as well as strong management leadership skill. Also, he must have the authority to make decision. Yes, KB2, I agree with you. Yeah, the manager must experience, must have good knowledge of the field, of the area. Ideally, should work experience as well, right? So if let's say I'm installing a software engineer, but I don't know anything about installing software, what am I doing there, right? I'm actually probably I'll mess up as well. So at least I should know what software installation means, right? Or installation means. Right? If I've never done, then I probably may not messing up. Okay. So of course, as usual, the more you do something, the more experience you have, you become better at it. All right. So yeah, a great sound knowledge and experience. And of course, okay, a project must have good management leadership skill because you're going to lead a group of professionals. Each of they are good in what they do. Like say you are a project manager in a construction work project. Say building office block, and you're a project manager, but you might not be the civil engineer or electrical engineer and so on. So you have to have good skill to lead everybody, right? All the quantity surveyors and engineers and everybody else, right? You need that skill, good skill, management leadership skill. Zaida, can you advise us on effective updates meeting? Because it can be done submitting daily. Also, what are good elements that a good manager should have. Okay, the effective updates on meeting. Okay, you can have okay, in most cases, okay, makes projects going on, you will have this tradition of early morning meeting. I know most company will have that. So projects can have that as well. But say every morning they meet together. It could be a stand-up meeting basically. They come together and say, okay, this before we start of the day, say this is what we're going to accomplish today. And before that, what did we do? What you do yesterday and the days before, and what was going to happen next. For instance, let's say today is Wednesday. So you know you're going to update what we're going to do today, and then inform your team that okay, next Wednesday that the equipments will arrive, right? So if the equipments arrive on Monday, right? So we must prepare to install the equipment on Monday onwards, right? Otherwise the project will be delayed, right? So that's definitely stand-up meeting. And also if stakeholders have like weekly meeting or monthly meeting, and then if you have people to report to, for instance, if you're working in a company, you might have to report to your CEO on once a week, and so regular meeting, right? You also have to have a meeting with your stakeholders. Example, we're doing example of hospital project. You have to report to the Minister of Health to tell them, look, how the project is progressing. It could be a monthly meeting and so on. So depending on how the organization is structured. Okay, so that's one. Good manager should have good leadership skills, basically, right? He must know how to lead people, how to motivate people, and also at the same time monitor progress and so on. Yeah, must have good skills. I'm currently a protege in a project management currently in IT field. Your opinion, is it okay I jump in another? Okay, Nur Dania Azhar. Okay, this is a very difficult question to answer. To advise you whether you should jump another industry. Okay, my answer to briefly is what skills can you carry with you when you go to the next company? Because the new company will ask you, what are you bringing with you? You have done this as a protege in a project management. What skills are you going to carry forward, bring with you when you go move to the next company? All right. Okay, Tarmizi. We are an engineering company, and one of our staff is currently working as site manager. He's good at leading team and site management daily, but he's not capable of handling budgeting, documents. In your opinion, can such a person still be role, or should we consider? Okay, so the answer to this on whether staff working as site manager. Okay, so by definition, okay, earlier I said when a person is appointed to overlook project, he does not necessarily carry the title project manager. It could be anything. Site manager could be one, engineering manager could be one, and so on. Right. So if this site manager is good in one thing, leading the team, right, managing daily operations and so on, but is not capable of budgeting, or could be that is not his capability, not his skill. He doesn't have the skill, right? So one way to do is have somebody to support him in that role. Let's say somebody who knows how to handle budget, documentation, and so on. So sometimes as a project manager, you might not be good at everything. Yeah. So you need to give somebody to support the project manager to do it. Okay. Yeah. You know, whether to define the project could be, depending, this is title, site manager or project manager, right? Farah, project manager also need to know the ecosystem within the department. Yeah. So basically, yeah. So Farah Zaina, a project manager also need to know the ecosystem within the department, especially in project acquisition and project manager. We acquire the ecosystem, dealing with the existing culture might be. Yeah. So basically, when you're project manager, you're dealing with different cultures of people, right? Let's say you're building a hospital, for instance. You're going to deal with your own people, for one. You also have to deal with the people in your sponsor, which is the MOH, right? How the reporting is done. Also, when you take over another company by acquisition, then they will have a different culture, right? When Celcom bought over, we call it merger with DG, right? Celcom and merger, so Celcom and DG merged. They both have different cultures, definitely. right? One is bigger and the other one is like mid-size and so on. And they have evolved over time. Actually, for your info, DG was initially known a company called DG Swisscom many years ago. This is like in 1998, around that time. And the company DG went for listing on the stock exchange under the name of DG Swisscom, right? And actually, I was the what do you call it, project manager of listing that company on the stock exchange many years ago. All right. That's why I said when I went to investment banking, one of the things I did was listing out companies. So DG was my client at that time. Because over the period, the company's evolved and then grown and so on. So it has its own culture, definitely, right? DG was initially owned by Berjaya Group, right? Tassim Vincent was the shareholders and so on. So Berjaya have their own culture, DG have their own culture as well. Now you have this Celcom, they have evolved over time, and so they have different cultures as well. So they're going to have this issue with tolerating or dealing with each other's culture. That you're going to have, definitely. Okay, next one, Siva Kumar. Can you also please advise on some of the methodology or achieve action can be taken by contractors to resolve, mitigate recovery plan for work progress delay behind schedule during project? Okay, so the first thing, Siva Kumar, when you have okay, you remember the triple constraint? When a project is delayed, means you didn't need the timeline. Basically, that's the thing, right? You might have started on time, but you're going to be delayed. Now you have to deal with a few things. One is to inform the sponsors, right? To tell them that why is the delay happening, right? And what will happen after the delay? How far is the project? How much is the project going to be delayed? All right. And if the project is going to be delayed, say 6 months, maybe the client say, okay, done. And then if you want to speed up, they can't delay it anymore. Then how can you speed up the project, right? For instance, let's say you only work one shift, right? 9 to 6 or whatever the shift. So if you want to speed up, then you might have to work in the night as well, second shift. That could be one, right? In some project that can be done, right? So if you're selling a software, even constructing a building, it can be done, right? Within what is allowed. There are times you cannot do construction in the night when you are close to residential area and so on, depending on the situation, right? But let's say this location, this project is industrial building or office building, away from all the residential area, then you could be working in the night as well. Can you do the work at night? So that another recovery plan, mitigating the delay, right? Whatever it is, you have to inform the sponsor that your project is delayed and why, right? If you keep quiet and you don't say anything, then you have a bigger problem later when you're behind schedule, all right? Yeah. I think I hope I answered the question, so Kumar. Okay, let's go back to this. Okay, let's look at now it's 10, 11. Let me go through this. Share this. Okay, when we have a project and you know that we have a scope of work, a project as a scope, now we have to deliver the end product to the client, or a product, or we call it project, whatever you call it, you have to deliver to the sponsor, the client, right? So the deliverable, what you deliver to the client can be hardware, right? Such as table or a prototype or pricing equipment, can be a building, a finished office equipment and so on, right? Hardware. All right. So that could be one type of deliverable, which you can touch and see and so on, hardware. The other one is software deliverables. This could be things you can't really, might not be able to touch as like a building or so, but it could be reports, studies, handouts, documentation, things like that, in this case, like if you say report, then in a physical form, it's a hardware. But in this context, we're saying software. It's not like physical things like a building or a table or so. Right? The other one, interim deliverables. This I think can be either hardware, software, and progressively evolving as the project proceeds. Example might be a series of interim reports leading to the final project. So it could be that whenever the interim means upfront you agree what is the first, what is the first delivery you're going to do? All right. It could be that, let's say you're talking about reports, customer, market research. Let's say a market research. You're actually doing a research for the client on how the products performing in the market, right? So you will say in your project deliverable, in your agreement, that in 6 months' time, on 30th June, I will submit your first draft. Okay, so it means it's not the final draft. In the contract, it says you must deliver the first draft on 30th June of the year, right? That's the first deliverable, interim deliverable, right? Then you say, okay, and then it's given to the customer or the client in this case, and the client has to revert back with their comments and so on within, say, 2 months, right? So 30th June, you deliver the first draft. July, August, they will review it, and then on 30th August, they deliver their comments and so on. Then you take all the inputs and say, okay, final report will be delivered on 31st December, let's say. So that's the last report. So when you have these drafts, draft 1, draft 2, and so on, right? That's the interim deliverable. This one, okay? So if you see like housing developments, right, you will have this, say, 3 blocks of apartments coming up, right? So the contract that I live in Shah Alam, there's a few projects going on. So the contract will say, okay, within the first 2 years, within 2 years, you must deliver the first block. Right. So once the first block's ready, people will move in, they will move in. And while that is going on, they will be constructing the second tower or second building and third and so on. So if you look at housing areas, usually it's like that. They don't complete everything in one go, but they do part by part or block by block in this case, right? So that could be another way of deliverables as well. Okay, it's another one. So if you look at usually construction work, you'll see that reports, you'll see that in interim deliverables as well. Okay. Okay, let me look at the chat. Okay, I think. Okay, Kolishi, yeah, the afternoon session will be same. It's the same motion, right? We said we'll do an afternoon session because in case this Zoom account can only accommodate 100 people. All right. So if you have more than 100 people, then say, okay, join the second session in the afternoon. So if you're already here, you don't have to come to the second session. It will be the same thing. Yeah. Okay, let me continue to the next one. Okay, time now is 11:22. We have about close to 40 minutes, right? Okay, let me go to the project life cycle. Okay, so when we have a project, earlier we said it was a beginning time, end time. So there's a cycle going. Things have to happen within the start time and end time, right? So we have a project, what do you call the project management life cycle? Okay, so that basically it says stages of the project from initiation to closure, from the beginning to the end. Basically, that's the life cycle, right? So let me show you the cycle. All right. So when you look at the project management life cycle, it starts with project initiation, right? So when you say project initiation, it's not beginning yet. It's not beginning yet. So basically, it's where you start formalizing the agreement with the client, where you say, okay, let's say this client says, sponsor says, we want to do a building of 5 floors, office building with with so much space and so on. So project initiation. So we haven't started the project. We're talking about it, and this is where I will talk about it in a minute. This is why initiation. We haven't even done planning yet. Okay. Then we go to project planning. We actually then do the planning for the project. How are you going to do it? Let's say if a construction project and the project is 3 years time, covers 3 years, then what will happen during 3 years? Project planning, right? So at this level, we're still planning. We haven't done the project yet, right? Then only once the project planning is approved by the stakeholders, the sponsor, then we actually do the project or execute the project, right? So this is where we say, okay, from this date, the project is started, and in 3 years' time, you'll complete. Yeah, project execution. Then while the project is going on, you do two things. One is you monitor project's progress. Okay, how is the project? Is it based on the triple constraint? Is it within time? Is it within budget? Is scope is met or not? And things like that. Three constraints, right? Making sure they're monitored. And also controlling. So for instance, scope is good, it's agreed. Is it on time or not? If you need if you delay, what are you going to do to catch up? You might have longer working time schedule, working the weekend, work time, and so on. Right? Monitoring, so monitor the three items, and also controlling. What can you do to manage this? If let's say this doesn't fulfill the contract agreement, for instance, like time frame is one. What is the cost? There's a cost overrun, right? One is to control the cost, making sure the cost doesn't overrun. But what if the cost overrun? Then what do you do next? All right. And the last one, once the project is completed, hand over to the client, then you bring to closure. All right. And my experience, usually this is where once project ended, people, take it easy, done, and take. But actually, this is also where a lot of things have to happen, project closure. For instance, making sure the contract terms are fulfilled, payments are made, all right? And if internally, if the reporting done, for management or CEO or even the board of directors, you go to do the report and making sure both hand over the project is accepted by the client via formal agreement or a letter of acceptance to say that they have already accepted the project and you're done your part, right? If you don't do the project closure, then it will be hanging, and then people will say, okay, has this been done? Has been done? Invoices sent out? Have you sent the claim for days and so on, right? The formally project must be brought to closure. Okay, so next few slides will just explain these steps, 5 phases. Okay, so let's talk about project initiations, right? So this is where we're saying there is intention to do a project, right? Initiation only. So this is where, let's say you want to do talk about feasibility study. Let's say the government of Ministry of Health says they want to build an airport. Build an hospital in the area, in a location. Basically they will have done their study. They say, what is the population around the area? How many million people are there? How many thousand people are there? Is it worth building a project, building a hospital in that location? What is the demand going to be like? Let's say if the township has only 200,000 people or the location, then maybe you don't need a hospital. You need probably just a clinic will do, right? So the feasibility study, whether you need to build that hospital there or not. Okay. It could be also, let's say, you're building apartment blocks, 500 apartments in a location township is only say 500,000 people population. So might not be feasible to build that apartment with 500 rooms or apartments in that area. So feasibility, right? And then next one, if let's say assume the project is feasible, if that is necessary, then the next step is identifying who the stakeholders are, right? Recognizing all parties involved as affected by the project. So this one is the stakeholder is the population around the area in the township or the location. Also, who else? In the case of hospital, we Ministry of Health, other departments like construction engineers, also in roads, people who are in roads. How about TNB? Could they have to do the wiring? Telecom, they have to do the telecommunication lines and so on. So all these are stakeholders, right? In the case of hospital, Majlis Perbandaran is a stakeholder as well. They got to know, right? Identifying all those people involved in that project, all right? Then you develop a project charter, right? So we call traditionally it's called a project charter. Basically, it's saying a document that outlines the project objective, scope, stakeholders, high-level requirements, and so on. So basically, it's like you can say agreement, could be a contract, could be that. So generally, in the project management context, called project charter document. Okay. We'll talk about project charter if we have time. The next one is business case creation. So basically justifying why you need the project in that location after taking into account costs and benefits and so on, right? Like I was saying, if a township or a place only have 200,000 people, there is no justification to build an airport in that location. Sorry, airport, even a hospital in that location. Doesn't make sense, right? 200 people. Only a clinic, government clinic is good enough for 200,000 people in the location, right? So in the case of, say, Shah Alam, when they build the hospital, I think the population in Shah Alam could be close to 1 million already. Maybe surrounding area, Klang and so on, we have 1 million more, right? So basically that whether you need to do the project or not. In the case of business concentration, whether you can actually make profit in the case, because we're talking about profit, right? So whether, let's say you build a block of apartments, 500 units, can you sell? Can you make money out of it? So in that context, right? So business case. But of course, in the case of a hospital, you don't really talk about business case, but really about a need, whether there's a need for that based on project or not. Right? So basically, here is you haven't done anything yet. Justifying why you need this project done. Right? Is there a need? And also, if you're a business, isn't it a business? Is it a business opportunity or not? Right? Like I was saying, if the township has only 200,000 people, why build 400 units of apartments there? Will it help or not? Yeah, that's one the business case. Then you go to project planning, right? So a project planning is actually still, we haven't done the project yet. So here now, after all the initiation done, all the information is available to you. Let's say, okay, now the project is given to you or awarded to you. Now you plan for the project, right? So few things we'll do in project planning will be defining scope, right? Clearly saying what is included and what is not included. Example, let's say you get a contract to build construct a hospital. So your scope is building the hospital building, but the road leading to the hospital is not within your scope. All right. Connecting to the main line of telecommunication and electricity, it's not within your scope. That will be Tenaga and Telecom Malaysia, right? So the scope must be very clearly defined, saying that what you do and what you do not do, right? So in the case of installing a new software, the scope could be you purchase and install the software in the entire IT system, but your scope does not include upgrading the hardware. Upgrading the hardware is not within the scope. I mean, you do not do it unless the client wants to do it. Is separate scope, and that will be separate contract as well. Yeah, that's the scope is defined clearly. Then the goals of the project is very clearly defined. Is specific, measurable, time bound, and so on. If it's a profit business, then how much profit you're going to make? What is your cost, and so on. Okay. Then creating a project management plan. Basically, documenting the approach for managing time, cost, quality, resources, communication, and so on, right? And lastly, develop a schedule and budget, right? So this is done before the project starts. So you have a timeline or schedule for the project. You also budget for the project. This two has to be in place, right? If you start a project without this two, you're going to have problems as well later, right? So this, like I was saying, things has to happen in the timeline. For instance, before your equipment arrives, the building, the room must be ready to install the equipment. Otherwise, if the equipment comes in, but the room is not, the space is not ready, then you cannot install the equipment, right? Which is why you have to have to follow the schedule, have a schedule, also budget as well. Okay. Also sometimes equipment like airports and so on, it takes time to order, purchase, and get delivered as well. So you have to have the schedule it properly. All right, and then budget as well. Okay, so then after the planning is done, everybody agrees to it and so on, then you actually do the project, run the project, or execute the project, right? So when you're running the project, you got to do a few things. One is that monitoring the progress, making sure they're on time, within budget, those two things, right? And scope, of course, scope is actually met, right? The three things. The project meets the scope, meets the timeline, also budget as well. Then making sure what is being built or worked on is meet the quality of the client's needs, right? Quality assurance. The last thing, communication. making sure the stakeholders are informed about progress and any issue that arise. So as the project is being executed, you have to, depending who the stakeholder is, could be Ministry of Health, it could be, if it's a commercial building, could be the sponsor of the building, the owner of the building. You tell them about this, whether it's on time, whether the budget, what issues come up, and things like that. You have to communicate with the sponsor of the project regularly, right? Okay. Then you come to the project monitoring and controlling. So while the project is being executed, okay, although it says step 4, step 3 and 4, right? Actually, monitoring and controlling runs at the same time, concurrently with the execution, right? So basically, when the project's running, you monitor progress and control the cost. So you're measuring the performance using matrix to assess whether the project meeting its goals, and then any change to the project or scope is a formal process. So change management, any change in the scope is agreed upon by both parties. And lastly, as you run the project, actual project, manage the risk, identify the potential risk, and implementing mitigation strategies. Right. So example could be you audit or place an order for the equipment, but it's going to be delayed because of weather or so, and delayed by say 3 months. Means entire project should be delayed by 3 months, right? Unless when the equipment arrives, you can speed up the project. Otherwise, the project will be delayed as well for 3 months. So yeah, basically monitoring and controlling as you go on, right? So 3 and 4 runs concurrently, all right? Then you come to the closure. Okay, so this is where you say, okay, we have done the project, complete the project, and now we are ready to hand over to you. So this is where, say, if you construct a building for a client, okay, then you have a document to say, okay, we're handing over these things to you, and they agree to accept it. All right. Then complete all the documentation, including internal documents like updates and archiving and so on, so that it can be referenced in the future. Also, a post-mortem analysis, analyze with your team what went well and what didn't work, and how we can do better next time. Okay. And of course, celebration of success when you hand over the project to the sponsor, then you acknowledge team efforts and achievement and so on. So this is the last step. Very often from my experience as well, when projects completed, right, and this is where then people take easy, they will take time. Okay, I'll do the report later and so on. Then it's never get done. Very often, right? This get neglected, and then later, sometime later say, we don't have this report and that report, and then things like that. Yeah. So example of this closure is when, when if you buy a house from a developer, this point you say they hand over the key to you, the developer will hand over the key to you, you take the key, and then you agree, okay, inspect what you've given to you, make sure there's no defects. If there are defects, you document it and submit the document to the developer and so on. It's a closure, right? Once you sign off and say, okay, we accept it, then it's done. There's no more going back generally, unless it's warranties and so on. Yeah. So the project closure for the last step being, all right. Okay. Let me see whether there's any questions in the chat. Banyak. Okay. Okay. One thing the Gantt chart or project timeline include the timeline of project initiation stage? Not necessarily, right? Actually, the Gantt chart or the project timeline will say when the project starts and when project ends, right? So it doesn't clearly say what the planning will be done this time, and sorry, initiation will start at this time, and project. Usually the Gantt chart or the project timeline will say project starts on this date, ends on this date. It doesn't include the planning part or the initiation part. It doesn't, as much as I know, right? Okay, afternoon is the same. Yeah. So after session is a repeat same session. Okay. The project initiation is before we get the project or after. Okay, the project. Okay, project initiation. Actually, the question is, Sophian, right? Project initiation, is it before we get the project or not? Okay, this project. Okay, this project initiation actually is done before you given the project. Okay, let's say project initiation. Okay, depending on situation where how you're involved in this project, all right? If let's say the contract is already awarded to you, right? Now the contract says you must also do the feasibility studies, right? So that's part of the initiation also, right? So depending on nature of contract, but in some cases, what will happen is like my experience, right? Let's say the IT department and the accounting department says, hey, our software is like, I don't know, many years ago, before even Windows came into place, very old software, it's time to upgrade, right? And then internally, the IT department, accounting department has already agreed, and we need a new software. That's agreed within them, right? And then the IT department, accounting department go to their management team, and also maybe say board of directors say we're going to install a new software in the company, and the budget is 2 million ringgit. All right, that's internally initiated. Okay, and then the IT department, let's say the procurement manager will say, okay, this project will cost us 2 million, and these are the proposed vendors for the project. Right. So if you look at it at this stage, the initiation is still at the internal level. It's not even gone to the client. All right. Only once the project is approved by the board of directors, let's say, then you ask for tender and you get quotation from the companies, right? Now, then let's say you are selected as the project for the project. You now got the job to install the software, and then once you get the contract, then okay, from then you start planning, and then you talk about the execution and also execution and so on, right? So in this case, the initiation does not involve you as an external contractor, right? It's done by by the IT department, accounting department. All right. Similarly, let's say there's the Ministry of Health decide to build a hospital in say a new hospital in Taiping, let's say, right? And then Ministry of Health, usually they would have already done the feasibility study whether there's a need for a hospital in that township, done already, right? So then they agreed, yes, we're going to build a hospital in this place, this town. Now they invite tenders, right? So again, looks like you as a contractor, you are a construction company, you're not involved in the initiation stage, project initiation. Initiation done by the Ministry of Health, right? Then they invite tenders, contractors to submit their tenders and so on. Once the contract is awarded to you, then you do the planning with them, in consultation of Ministry of Health. All right. I hope you're answering your question, Sophian. What should comment? Yeah, I can give it to you. Okay, Teo Kengju, do you have an example of project completion report, main section that are basic and nice to have? Okay, I'll give you one with the slides together as well. Right, let me, time now is 11:42. Okay, right, so that's the life cycle of project, the 5 steps, right? Like I was saying, 3 and 4 run concurrently, right? You can't have 3 and 4, project execution monitoring and controlling happens at the same time concurrently. Then you got project closure. Okay. Okay, let me give you 2 examples of a project case studies. Right, these slides will be given to you as well. So the first one is this hospital called El Pilar in Guatemala City. All right, what is just like the airport, the first example I mentioned earlier. Remember the constraint for the airport was the airport cannot be closed. As it continue running, planes still have to land and take off. Customers will come in and check in and leave the airport and so on. As it cannot be closed, right? And while all that's going on, they extend the airport. So very similar to that project. This hospital El Pilar in Guatemala City is a running hospital. It's been around for so long, but they needed expanded. They need more space. The population increased. They have to build a bigger more buildings and so on, those that they still have to continue operations as usual while the construction is going on. So that was a challenge for them. All right. So this city. So okay, so basically the project was done, or the extension was done to accommodate patient numbers, increasing patient numbers, and of course increase the quality of the care or in the hospital, right? So some of the things, the constraint they have in the hospital was the challenges rather, right? One is space constraint, right? The hospital needed more space, bigger land, and so on. So they need a bigger airport, bigger hospital. But the land space is quite limited for them, and so on. So another one is operation disruption. Okay, so while the construction is going on, they cannot disrupt the operations of the hospital because patients will still come in, they have to be treated, and all surgeries have to go on, all the, everything that hospital does has to go on, cannot be stopped, right? Cannot interrupt the services. The third challenge was, of course, they had always have a tight budget, the timeline as well, time frame, right? So, so these three challenges they had, right? Space constraint, they don't have a lot of land to expand. The operation has to carry on while the day-to-day operation has to go on while the construction is going on. Thirdly, the budget and time is limited, right? They have to complete the project within the time frame, and the budget is given as well. They cannot overspend and so on. Okay, those are challenges. So when they the project implementation, I'm just looking at the clock. When the project was given to the construction company contractor, they did the project in a very systematic way. They did detailed planning basically, establishing the project scope, timeline, budget, ensuring alignment with the hospital's operational needs and so on, right? So making sure what the hospital wanted or need was met in the planning. Secondly, is stakeholder engagement. So basically, while the construction is going on, stakeholder engagement, continuous communication with medical staff, patients, and the local community, ensure the project must have met needs of all involved parties, right? Okay, and then the construction was done in phases, so it does not disrupt the ongoing medical services. All right, that's one phase construction. Next is project team proactively identify potential risks and develop strategies and so on, right? So they basically had the manage the risk upfront and then making sure does not disrupt the project itself. All right. Then, so what they did, the project initiation level, recognize the need for expansion. The hospital defined clear objectives to increase capacity and improve quality care for them. So you remember this initiation, actually the hospital is who define the objectives of the project, not the contractor. All right. So it's the hospital that define the objectives. Secondly, the project team develop detailed plans and so on. Taking into account space constraint, the land is not space is limited. They have a budget limit and scheduling as well. All right. So, and also remember, while the construction is going on, the hospital has to continue operations. Right. Okay, execution here. Construction renovation was done in phases to minimize impact on patients and staff, and it does not disrupt the operations of the hospital. Then monitoring control, continuous oversight, ensure adherence to budget timelines, which is adjustments made to handle unexpected challenges. And closure, expansion was completed successfully, improving healthcare delivery without interrupting existing services. Right? Okay, so going back to the why this case is important or unique in this case is it's not building a brand new hospital. All right. I'm not saying building a brand new hospital is easy, but the thing is, at least when you bring a brand new hospital, you don't have the operations going on, right? Next building, the people are seeing surgeries are still going on, patients are coming and going. But this is the existing hospital, so the operation is still going on, and yet you're going to continue building and do the construction work, basically. All right. So when the project's completed, they they had increased capacity and improved patient care, of course. All right, they successfully managed the constraint they have, space, budget, and ongoing operations. All right, and then also demonstrated value of structured project management in healthcare settings, right? So this is one of the successful projects. If you look at case studies for projects, it will be mentioned as well. Okay, let me look at one more. Time is 11:49. Okay, this you can look at later. Okay, so there's another one here. Just now earlier in my presentation, I talked about MADMA, right? National Disaster Agency, right? So in New Zealand, this is in South Island. So they have a massive flooding happened, right, a couple of years ago. So this case study is about that. All right. So when the flooding happened, remember this again, these roads and bridges all are already existing. This thing, it's not building a brand new road, right? So now they have to repair the roads and bridges and so on. That's about the challenge, right? So the NZTA, New Zealand Transport Agency, have to restore the infrastructure following the flood in South Island, New Zealand, right? So what were the challenges in the project? One was the flood caused widespread damage to roads, bridges, infrastructure, and so on. Cutting off access to numerous communities. So some communities or townships and villages cannot be accessed at all, right? So, and then the challenge one was the severe damage to infrastructure, right? And then, you know, when this damage, when the communities or township are cut off, they have to speed up the reconstruction work very quickly, right? So severe damage, extensive destruction of infrastructure required rapid assessment and prioritization of repairs to restore connectivity. Logistical connectivity. Remember when roads and bridges are already damaged, how do you now access standing materials and so on to the site? So that was another challenge, right? Logistical complexity. Remote condition made it difficult to transport materials and deploy teams to the affected areas. Last one is time sensitivity. Agency to reconnect communities and restore essential services demanded swift and efficient project execution. So when towns or areas are cut off and cannot be accessed, means you know, they will have a problem. One is like, how do you deliver food to them, right? How do you deliver services, electricity, water, and so on, right? When these are all this infrastructure damaged. So there was a time that it has to be very deliberately repaired, restored, so it doesn't, the people won't, you know, one is complaining, the other one is, they won't be isolated and so on, right? So that's one, reconnecting roads. When they implemented the project, they did a rapid assessment. Teams were quickly deployed to assess damage, prioritize repairs, development, detailed development plan. And it involves collaboration within government agencies, contractors, local communities, so that efficient resources are allocated and executed. They had innovative solution. They employed creative engineering techniques like temporary bridges, alternative routes, speed up repairs, and so on. Also, lastly, continuous monitoring, regular monitoring adjustments to meet the project plan and so on. Okay, that's the implementation part. All right. So outcome, the project successfully achieved its goals, resulting in road and bridges were repaired ahead of schedule, reconnecting isolated communities and restoring access to the services. Use of innovative and flexible project management practice to significant cost savings and so on. Last one, quick restoration of infrastructure boosted community confidence and stability, helping people recover more quickly in disaster and so on, right? So that's the second case study on the road infrastructure rebuilding in South Island, New Zealand, right? Again, remember, this is also not a new project, but actually rebuilding and reconnecting rebuilding the roads, rebuilding the bridges and so on. So really existing there, right? So these are the challenges they had, right? Time now is 11:53. Let me see. Is there anything in the chat? Okay. Project completion report, I'll find for you. Okay. we have about 6 minutes or so. Is there any questions you want to ask at this point? Any questions you want to ask? I don't. Okay, I don't see any. You can raise your hands and ask. Switch on your microphone and ask, or you can type in the chat as well. Okay. While you're doing that, let me flash a screen. Okay. Yes. A simple assessment for participants of today's workshop. If you can just scan this QR code and give your feedback. I think it's just a simple feedback form. This. Right. If you can just take your phone out and just scan this, it will go to the feedback. It just says how many stars and so on.
What do you
Okay.
think?
Done.
Let me just add to the session, yeah. Okay. We have attended actually a few project management session, and there are a lot of version that we can cover. There are a lot of things and a lot of elements and components into the project management itself. So the introduction to project management goes to very basic how and what, and we do not cover a lot on tools in this session. We covered tools in the previous session, which is under project management tools for facilities managers. That was done last week. So for this session that you attended, it is a very basic introduction to project management. So if you want to find out more, I will drop an email later on this session and also the slides. If you are very curious to know more about the technicality of it, please write in to us, because not only NTW, we do run programs that have a complete running the projects, the tools, and the simulation of each stages of how it is conducted. Right, that will be on the technicality, which we are not impossible to cover in 2 hours, and of course during this National Training Week. Right. So I think we have another question, Dr. Anuar from Theo. How do you handle conflicting stakeholders in a project? Only nightmare.
Okay. But if we get okay, do we have an example? Okay. How do we handle conflicting stakeholders in a project? Okay. How do you handle conflicting stakeholders in a project? Okay. Each stakeholders will have their own objectives, definitely, right? If you're getting a project from MOH, basically they want hospital up and running within the time frame. Like we want the project to be ready, hospital ready by 2029 January. That's the one. There's no for them, because they are answerable to the community, right? The local MP pun, local MP pun, he's answerable to the community as well. You promise in January 29 the hospital will run. Why is it not open? Yeah. So basically, the stakeholders are having continuous communication. Could be a formal meeting through letters and so on. That how is the project progressing, right? If it's going to be delayed by not within your control. Sometimes weather, procurement can be delayed and so on. If that happens, inform the stakeholders that this is going to happen. It's going to be delayed. Tell them they're going to cost overrun. Tell them as early as possible, so they're going to not be shocked and say, "Hey, how come you promised 1 billion, cost of 1 billion, now it's 1.5 million." Right? That happened in KLIA too. Cost overrun. I didn't put into the slide today. Cost overrun a lot, many hundred millions, right? So basically, conflicting, having discussion, having meetings, right, regularly, right, so that everybody's updated, right? This one. So if you are a private contractor, you definitely will make money of this, right? Otherwise, why are you doing construction? What you want to make profit? But so basically, it's going back to negotiating with the, communicating with the stakeholders, lah. All right. So if I can just put 2 slides up. Okay. I don't know how many people actually managed to register, but registration was uploaded in the beginning. I think in the chat it's also uploaded, right? Maybe you already uploaded the chat in the chat, right? The registration slide. Sorry, where was this?
Yeah, attendance. I also be sharing the attendance link again, just in case you miss, and also the link to the review. Because
Yeah.
some of you are using handphone kan, right? So I'm just sharing it again. Attendance list. Please ensure you complete the attendance because I need to map it against your apa, NTW. Alright, I need to map against that so that once I've done that, you need to complete the TEE assessment in the NTW network. You will get your certificate. Alright, so attendance is very important. And also, if you have email, please make sure it is usable. At least get email yang bounce back. So I'm not able to reach you. They have to reach you via WhatsApp. So please ensure that you put a valid email address. And also, I'm sharing you the link of the review from you guys. And also, in the email later, you can always feedback what are your areas that you need to understand or you need more info, right? Polishi, just attendance sekali je. Don't worry about it. Yeah,
so
only 2 months.
if I could just kalau if you have not done the feedback, just let me scroll through quickly. What is right to the same?
So share Dr. Anuar's email later together with everything else. We'll take group photo so jangan lari ya.
Yes. Okay. So basically, I think Mimi mentioned this is Mimi's MAPSS team. I think Mimi is in the second in the row. So if you need any information on this program or other programs or gonna MAPSS, you can contact Mimi directly. The email, I think you already got it already, right? And then of course the feedback form, right? You're good. So I'm going to stop sharing, right? So I think this is the time you take a photo, right? Attendance. If you can switch on your camera, would be good.
So please on your camera. Nice to see all the new faces. And of course, the return ones. Thank you so much for joining us since the 2nd of June. All right. Let's wait for another 2 minutes. Everybody will on the camera. Okay. All right. There's 2 screens, yeah. So I'll be taking the first one first. Okay, just. All right. Thanks, Suresh. Okay.
If I can just take. Okay, you done already?
Wait, some others are still switching on the camera. Okay. I will also share this in the email to you guys together with the slide. All right. Everybody. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, just hang on. Because 7 of you, I got 2 screens. Right, I'm going to another screen. Just give me a minute. All right, second screen, 1, 2, and 3. Okay.
If I can just also that what yeah, second one.
Yeah, I've done.
I just want to share the cover of the presentation. So maybe you can take a photo of this as well with the people in the room.
Okay, let's see how do I do that. Yeah, okay, speaker. Hold on. Okay, but I cannot put so many people. Let me try to squeeze in as
At
many
least
people.
and the screen now.
Yeah, I'll try to squeeze in. All right, 1, 2, and 3. One more time. Sorry guys, I am from a different generation, not so techy. So please, bear with me. Okay, last one, 1, 2, and 3. Okay, yeah.
Mhm. Okay, I switch off. Okay.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
For me, thank you again so much for spending the morning with us. And of course, thank you, Dr. Anwar. And Dr. Anwar, last words from you.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you once again. Thank you for attending this workshop. Of course, today I have 81 people. We expected. I was worried that we can't accommodate everybody in the room, but I guess some people are coming in the afternoon as well.
Yeah, they'll be joining in the afternoon.
So of course, in 2 hours you can't cover a lot, right? If you run a proper workshop, the 5 steps to the 5 steps of the project management is done in over 1 day, right? It's very detailed. What documents you have to do and things like that. We can do in a longer workshop, right? But I think I hope you have a good understanding what project management. You're never exposed to what the topic is about, what is project management is about. Hope you get a good understanding. And my email will be in the slides. You can just email me if you have any questions or need more information. Yeah. So once again, thank you very much.
Yeah, have a good day, everyone.
Mhm.
Thank you, Long SY. So I see you next session at 2 o'clock, Dr. Anwar.
Yeah. Okay.
And I wrap up everything and send them an email by tonight lah.
Mm.
There's a few, quite a lot to do when it comes to attendance. So I have to do one by one to map against the NTW attendance. It's going to take a bit of time.
Tomorrow's one is your account, right? Zoom account, right? Isn't it?
The afternoon one is also your account. Tomorrow is mine.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Sure.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Have a good day. I'll see you at 2.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right.
I'm gonna exit,